Hello, Carrots here. Welcome to my tutorial on Constrained Floor Elevation cheat, otherwise known as the CFE cheat, because that's shorter to type. Today we're going to just do a very brief introduction, and we're going to see how to put the doors into a foundation. You would use this putting the door in the foundation if you've got a split level. For example, you want part of your building to have a foundation and the Sims would generally walk around on the foundation. But you've also got a part of the building where the Sims will be walking through a doorway on the ground level to gain access to a part of the house that is not on the foundation. And then you'd have some steps inside to let the Sims walk up from the ground level to the foundation level. This is my Sim I'm using. Her name is Olivia Friday. She's been in my library for quite a while. I made her. I don't think I've used her very often. Don't really know what she does or what she's about. She was a random choice. The CFE cheat, you turn it on by first of all getting the cheat box up in the top left-hand corner of your screen. Now, to get the cheat box up, you hold down the Control and the Shift keys and hold them together, down together, while you then type the C key. And that will bring up the cheat box in the top left corner. Click into it, and you turn on the testing cheats first, which is testing cheats enabled true, and hit enter. Then the cheat box will close, and once the cheat box has closed, you need to open it again. Control Shift C, and then you type in Constrained Floor Elevation false, because the Constrained Floor Elevation is true by default, because otherwise your Sims would be floating through the air or running around underground. So you must always remember to turn it off when you've finished using it. You could have catastrophes. You turn it off by opening the cheat box and typing Constrained Floor Elevation true. There's Olivia. She's waiting for action. We're in a lot, an empty lot in Sunset Valley. It's right near the edge of the world. Any further along the road will be unwritable. So first of all, I type in testing cheats enabled true to turn on testing cheats. Now I use a testing sim because I test my builds as I go along. That way I find any issues immediately rather than hoping that I come across them later on after I finish building it. So here's the university mascot's arrived. It's a new game. I'm going to wait for him to leave. Let's just start building. Now, I use these little things on the left-hand side of the screen, and I just put them there so I've got my levels to work with. You can change these. You can have them any way you want. It's up to you. You know what you're going to be looking for in your levels when you're building. We'll be using the Level Terrain tool in conjunction with the Constrained Floor Elevation cheat, and you need to refresh it every time you click from one piece of leveling to another, because you'll find it just won't work unless you go back to you're in build mode. You go to the Terrain Tools menu, which is step 1 on my graphic here, and then you click on the Level Terrain tool and you do your leveling of the terrain for that particular little bit of terrain you want to level, and then you go back to the main menu for build mode and click on your Terrain Tools menu again, and then choose the Level Terrain tool. Don't try to just click on the Level Terrain tool once and then just keep using it, because it'll lock up and you won't know what's going wrong And what thing that's going wrong is failure to refresh it. It needs to start from step 1 every time you go onto a different part of your levelling of your walls and things that you're doing with the CFE sheet on. I think the reason for this needing to refresh it all of the time is when you use that tool, the first place you click on, that is the level that it's going to make the terrain around it that you pull it across. And then if you go and click on something else, it's still remembering what you just did. It needs to be cleared and told, okay, now we're starting a different bit of levelling. So that's why you need to keep going back to the main terrain tools menu. So I didn't like the way I had set up my little assisting blocks and walls and things before, foundations and walls, so I deleted them and I'm doing it again. This is something that you just fiddle with and you eventually work out what you want, and they can change during a build. The only thing to be aware of though is if you are raising and lowering levels and you're using the terrain tool to heighten or lower the terrain underneath these little things that you're building on the side here, you need to be careful that you get them right and keep them consistent. But here I'm not raising or lowering the terrain, I'm just using the cheat to allow us to work with the foundation. Now that initial little wall, that is the bottom one is the foundation. Now as you can see, when I do that, there's a red area and you can't do anything, because that's how it is when constrained floor elevation is turned on. Here we've got constrained floor elevation true. We need to get the cheat box open and type in constrained floor elevation false, and then use the terrain leveling tool. The thing you need to click onto are those little white outlined squares, and if your wall or whatever it is you're going to try to level doesn't have those little squares, well then you need to get them there. There they are. Right, now it's up. See how it's not red now? So we can level that wall down to foundation height. There it goes. The way I got those little white squares to appear on the top of my wall back there was to just page up. I was just a level below the top of the wall. You've got to be careful what level you're on, but sometimes there's other ways you have to use to get those little white outlines to appear. We're going to insert a door into a wall or into a foundation with a wall above it, which is the top level of those three things on the left. So we'll use the little foundation to level that wall to foundation height. Now that wall needs to be 5 squares long, minimum of 5 squares long. You can make it longer, but you need 2 squares on each side of the door, and we're putting a single tile door in that spot. You see, when you do that initially, just like that, the sim can walk through it, but it doesn't look very nice. So we'll just show you her walking through that if she'll just stop chatting to the university mascot. There's the paper girl. So she's going to walk through that door, and she can easily walk through that door. But I wouldn't like my houses to look like that. Looks a bit awful. But the bonus of having it like that is when you paint it, you can have stripes go horizontal stripes. You can't have horizontal stripes unless you like a really strange looking decoration around your doors. So we get rid of the door and we get rid of the bit of the foundation where the door belongs. Now we've got this ConstrainFloorElevation sheet on false. So when you fill that bit of the foundation level wall that you just deleted, it all pops up. Now you want the foundation to pop up, but you don't want the top wall to pop up. So you use the third of those three things I've done on the left to level the top of that wall. It's a second level wall. Always remember the foundation is your first level. Always. If it's not on the first level, then it's a freeze. We're not doing freezes here. So now she can walk through that door again. We just test to see that it works. And it does. So she can go back outside. But you can see from the shape of the bottom level foundation section how your horizontal paint will just wrap around that door. So really what you've got there is you've got a foundation height wall on your first level that turns into a normal height wall on your first level just for it to go around the door, and that is for 3 squares or 3 tiles. And then you've got your foundation height resumes. Now that's happening here. See there's a gap in there with those white tiles are missing, the white squares, they're missing. You have to level that wall off before you can do it. The reason for that gap was the foundation was up high and you needed to put it back down low. We're going to be doing this over and over again so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I've added that extra bit of wall because now we're going to put in a door that uses 2 tiles. So we need to delete 2 tiles from the middle there and then put it back in again and then level that bit of wall. And now we'll find a door that has 2 tiles. And we'll do it again with a door that has 3 tiles. So I just chose that door for a 2 tile wide door. Now we have to add another 7 tiles really, isn't it we need? Or 5, I've done 5 tiles. 7 tiles, something like that. Now you can see the gap there because that foundation is as high as the wall height. So we need to level that bit down. This is where you can go wrong so easily. Terrain tool, come on. That's it. So you don't need to go back to your little blocks on the left hand side if you've got a level inside your building. Didn't need to level the top of it yet either. But look, see how we've got some of those little squares missing on the back side of that wall? We'll need to fix that with the terrain tool before we can do too much. You just got to watch what's going on. We don't have our little squares on both sides of that wall at this point. They need to be on both sides of it. Had to go back and refresh the terrain tool because I was about to level the wrong bit. Now you see how we're using the terrain tool. We've got those little white squares. They're all back on both sides of that wall. So all's good at the moment. Things can change though. No, that's the wrong door. Might have to filter on base game, I think, because it's a base game door that I'm looking for. There it is. Now see how I always point my doors with the arrows going in. Most of the time it doesn't seem to really matter, but it does matter a lot when you're using ports and things like that, when you're building a port. So just your doors and windows must all point in the same direction. and I'll demonstrate that in another video. Just thought I'd mention it now. It's tidy, but it's not just tidy, it also can look quite messy in some circumstances if you don't do that. So I hope you followed it so far. Now look, see how that terrain is really strange up above? That is how you do need to keep your terrain tidy. So now I flattened the whole thing, because where it was up high, that's at how it should have been with 2 levels. But we've made our bottom level really short because we're turning into a foundation height bottom level. So our top level is not going to be that short. Now that's the foundation level. Oh, I've got the roofs turned off, and it keeps coming back on. Now we've got to put that down to the foundation, because those bits that are poking up into the sky there, they are actually on the next level up. So that's fixed that little problem. But look what's happened to our doors. So we need to go and put our doors back in again. I told you you'd see this happening a lot of times. I've done this so that you will see that I'm cutting it out of the foundation, not out of any other part. It's the bit the door has to sit in, that the sim has to walk through, that you need to cut out and replace. And then flatten the top part of the wall, not the bottom part. And now we can put our doors in there again. So if you get into the habit of always pointing your doors and windows in the same direction, then you don't have the horrible task of going around your build at the end, turning them all around if you're doing something where it really matters. This is the problem you have when you've got too much stuff. Quick to find it when you filter, even though there's so much showing. That filter for the... Okay, see how I've put that door in the wrong spot and the wall's sort of through the corner of it? That's terrible. We'll have to put that back in again. Now we can build the rest of the building. The bit we've drawn so far, that bit is going to be where the Sims walk around at ground level, and now we're building the bit where the Sims will be walking on top of the foundation. So this is the split level place that we're doing here. And I made this go all the way back, so it's only 3 tiles from the back of the lot. And I'm going to add another door at the back here. You've got to leave space for the door to open and shut, and we need to also have steps. We can't put steps out directly out towards the back of the building. We've got to put the steps down on each side of that little landing, because there's no room for them at the back. I've put the thing too close to the back of the lot. And I'm going to use 2 tile wide steps. I usually paint everything with the wood flooring because that's free, and I use that at the very beginning. And another trick that I use, and I haven't used it here, and I should have, I suppose, to show you, is before I start a build, particularly if it's a big lot like a 64 by 64 lot, which is the sort of lot that I use often, you'll have trouble getting those little white squares up the top of your walls if the lot isn't absolutely flat. And the way to make sure it's absolutely flat is to first of all flatten the lot and then cover the entire lot with a wood floor, because your lot, after you've flattened it and then when you put your walls on, the walls can actually dip it and make it, you can't see it with your eyes, but it isn't absolutely flat anymore. And you need to keep it flat, and the way to keep it flat is to give it a floor covering. So I think I put that flooring in the wrong spot then. So we've covered the floor in the lower part of the split level, and you do, particularly if you're building a port or something, you do really need to cover the floor up above as well, where I've used the foundation. I'm going to put some steps there. I'll just set them in a random spot because we're not designing a beautiful home. We are simply demonstrating how to get a sim to walk up the steps onto the next level up. Now I'm going to use a half wall across there just for the heck of it. It's not going to be affected by the CFE sheet, it's just there. Now we've got the beginnings of a building. Let's cover that. I'm not going to paint the walls until the end, when the outside bit I'll show you how the levels all work. Now we'll just stick a door at the back. I guess we're going to get up a level first and build the second story, which is really the third level. Insufficient funds. Right, well this isn't a game and I'm not going to keep it, so the quickest way I know to get extra funds for my Sims is use Master Controller, because I've got mods. I know you can do it with a cheat as well, but I don't use that cheat. We go family funds. I just type in a random number that's really big. In this case I put in 1 million, so there should be more than enough family funds there now to pay for the rest of this build, so you can see how it works. Now, although this is, to our minds, the second story, it's actually the third level. We've got our little white squares all around quite nicely there, except on the right hand side. That's a problem. It may not be a problem for this particular build, but it is a problem that you'll need to fix, or you will have issues at some point because of it. So we've got to go from one corner to the other corner in such a fashion as to let us get, and that corner's not the right corner. This is the right corner, correct. Now that fixed it. Just thought I'd show you that because it can give you huge issues at some times. You can get away with not worrying about it a lot of the time, but some of the time you can't. And that'll be when you run into building issues that you can't fix because you don't realise that that's the problem. There's a lot of houses around where I live that were built back in the late 1800s where they had that really steep roof, but they don't do that here now because we're in the subtropics and you don't need snow to roll off the roof because it doesn't snow here. So I'm not used to seeing buildings with really steep roofs. So there you go, we can get rid of them now, but you can always put them back. I'll do another video later because you can see how the levels are really wonky on the edges there. So if I was to try to build something there, I'd have problems. So I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit. I'm using flat paint, I think, but you can see with my graphics card it still stains around the doors. That's one issue with doing it this way. But you can, if you persevere, you will find that there are patterns and paints you can use that don't look so bad. Or you could disguise it with putting bushes or something around the, even putting windows in. Anything that breaks it up and makes your eye not quite see the outlines properly on and all parts of it will disguise it really well. I've just put a spiral staircase in the middle so we can send her up to the top level to see if it works properly there. That fence that I used at the back looks terrible, but that's the one I chose. It came with the Now and Then Century Manor. It's a venue from the store. It's a store fence. It's not a... I've tried to use either store or expansion or stuff pack items all through this. I have been consciously trying to avoid using custom content. So if I've used it here, it's more than likely available in the store or in an expansion pack or stuff pack. So I'm now going to do 3 different colours of paint which will highlight the different levels, so you can see how the foundation level, which we changed to fit the doors into the foundation, how they wrap around the door. That's how the foundation wraps around the doors. So it's a foundation level that you have to cut out a bit from when you're going to, and then replace it with a piece of foundation or wall that hasn't been made go down to foundation level. So that is about it, except now we've got to get the sim to go through. Olivia, she's going to go through all the doors for us to prove that they do work. And that's pretty much all we're going to see. I'm not going to put windows in, and I'm not going to decorate it or furnish it. So she went through the middle door, up the steps, no routing arrows yet. You need to do this because you can get errors that you have no idea are there. Because especially when you're using the CFE cheat, things can happen. The best way to use CFE is if you know exactly what you're going to do and you get it right the first time and it's exactly right, and you don't have to undo it and try again. Once you start having to bulldoze things and try to do it again, that's when your levels go wonky and you have all sorts of trouble. So if that really does happen to you, it would be a good idea to level the entire lot again using those little bits that I put across the side to get your foundation level and the level of the next wall up, etc. I'll be doing more tutorials on this cheat, but I just kept this one simple and just tried to cover one thing really, which was putting the doors into the foundation level when you're doing a split level place. So she can walk around everything. She hasn't started waving her hands in the air and stomping into the red circle with a line through it above her head. So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it and that you've actually found some use for it. And I hope you are now able to more confidently put doors into foundations using the CFE cheat. And the biggest thing at all that you must remember is to turn off the cheat. Remember, Control-Shift-C, constrain floor elevation true. You must have the foundation constrained. Otherwise it just goes wonky all over the world. And here I am turning off the cheat. Constrained floor elevation true. So now it's safe. That's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it and learnt something of use to you. Bye bye for now. I'll see you in the next video.